All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Warrior Woman 91, and holy cow, what a weekend for a live stream. Could not have been better timing. I want to thank Harry for being born last weekend and not this weekend, so we did the live stream this weekend. Quite fantastic timing. And we have some very special guests from Ben Shapiro's The Daily Wire. Please welcome Harry Khachatrian, Aaron Bandler, and our new guest, Josh Yasmeh. What has taken so long to have him on the show? It's ridiculous.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm very excited to have you all on my last live stream before the giant 2016 election. I'm sorry. Anyway, so note to the audience members, all death threats, memes, and marriage proposals should be directed to the comment section where I'll be sure not to read them. And any questions may go to @WarriorWoman91 on Twitter. And if we have time, we will see about answering them. And if we don't, then you can cry. So what show we have for you today? Everybody is going to want to weigh in on what just happened with the Hillary investigation. I do want to apologize to our audience who thought that Amanda was coming. She was, and she had a scheduling conflict. So I apologize profusely because I know she has some intense fanhood on Twitter. So I apologize. Anyway, so let's start with Aaron. Bring our audience up to speed on the absolute disaster that happened to the Hillary campaign on Friday.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any weirder, you found out that the FBI investigation on her emails was reopened because of Anthony Weiner, of all people. You know, it's like Andrew Breitbart is like laughing in heaven right now, the fact that this is happening. Boy, so basically what happened was, right now Anthony Weiner is under investigation because he was sexting an underage girl, which is really gross on numerous levels. I don't know why Democrats have this bad habit of like this weird sex stuff, but apparently they do. So he's under investigation. On the laptop that he texted this girl, it was classified information, presumably from Huma, because apparently they shared the laptop together.
Which gets like even weirder.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my God. So there's tens of thousands of emails that they're going through right now, which could take months. So right now, the standard line of defense I'm seeing on Twitter is you see people from like Center for American Progress, Huffington Post saying, "Oh, there's no email sent or received from Hillary, so WTF." Literally, that's the exact wording. It's like WTF. It's all on these leftist Twitter accounts, which makes no sense because they're still going through all these emails. They don't know for sure how exactly they relate to the Hillary case. That's why they reopened it, to see if it is pertinent to the case or not. And of course, we don't necessarily know that it is for sure, but Huma was Hillary's basically top confidant. I have a hard time believing that this classified information was in some way related to Hillary, or that Hillary didn't know about it or something. That would be kind of odd if somehow Hillary didn't know that this stuff was going on Huma's computer and so forth. So we'll see. I mean, it'll probably take months to resolve, but the key thing is the fact that this happens like with 11 days to go before the election is so huge, because it really reinforces what people don't like about Hillary, which is the fact that she's corrupt, that she's a liar, and that she's a felon, basically. And so this, I was looking at the polls today. They're tightening now. They're virtually tied in Pennsylvania. Trump and Hillary are. They're also tied in some national polls now. I still think Hillary will probably win, but I think it's now a lot more interesting thanks to this investigation. So we'll see how it goes. The only thing, Trump just needs to not do anything stupid, which seems to be a hard for him, because it seems like every time this stuff happens to Hillary, he always finds a way to hit himself in the face with a frying pan. So this week will be interesting and possibly even crazier than last week. So let's just sit back and enjoy the ride.
It really is fantastic. I was laughing so hard on Friday. I had the hiccups the rest of the day. It was insane. All this going on. For those of you who watched the Ben Shapiro show, he was bouncing off the walls, and it was so fun to watch. So, Harry, there's a lot of speculation about the real reason behind this FBI decision. Some people think that actually Obama was behind this whole thing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what kind of theories there are floating around about why this came out now?
No, definitely, because I'm sure, as you probably know, Comey came out in July, right, and he said that they actually weren't going to go ahead with the indictment. Right, he laid out this big case where he said, she's done this and this and this, and everyone listening obviously thought the next thing coming was, and this is why we're going to go ahead with the indictment, but of course he didn't. And then at which point he was praised by Democrats. Basically, they said, "Oh, so now Comey said this, so therefore we're going to put it away because Comey had the final word as the Obama-appointed FBI director. And then I think after that, he even gave an interview. I think Markle didn't play this on the show, where Comey gave an interview and he basically explained that it would be very unlikely for them to reopen the case, just because they would need some really big kind of a really big discovery for them to actually prompt them to go back into this thing. And then so all of a sudden on Friday, they went back into it. They said they have new discoveries that are pertinent to the investigation. So, I mean, the only issue is we don't actually know what any of it is. I think I saw a report on Yahoo this morning, and they said that they still haven't obtained a warrant to into Hillary's aides, into Aberdeen's email. So they don't have a warrant yet. So from what I've understood, they've found stuff on like Weiner's device, on Anthony Weiner. And I think Ben Shapiro tweeted out that it just must be the most horrible job for whichever FBI detective is sifting through this guy's phone and just the unimaginable things that are on this thing. Like every now and then you'll have maybe some kind of classified government information, and then between that is things he's sent to underage girls. So, and so I think the only conclusion is that there must be something there, because I just don't see another reason why they would reopen the case, right? And Comey is the guy appointed by Barack Obama. So I have an argument for why this guy would be like a kind of Republican plant, which again, some of the crazy kind of feel like there's like these, the Bill Mitchell equivalents on the Democrat side, who basically argue that anything that comes up about Hillary Clinton is some conspiracy concocted by the Russians or the NRA or something.
Or
so,
sexist.
Oh yeah,
right.
obviously.
Yes.
Of course.
Or sexist. So, yeah. So taking into account that this is the Obama-appointed FBI director, I think there's a reasonable argument for why there should be something pretty big in what they found out. The only issue is that there's like 11 days left to the election. So the chances of us actually finding out what it is pretty low, which I guess is a kind of good and bad thing for Trump, in a sense that if by the off chance that again it's kind of nothing and they don't go ahead with anything, it won't kind of bounce back to Hillary's favor during the election. But at the same time, if it's huge, then it's not, I don't think it's necessarily big enough to swing the election one way or the other.
Josh, is this the FBI just trying to save face, or is it, as Harry says, there's something big there that they found?
I don't think it's the it's the bullet everyone was looking for. I think it's the FBI trying to save face. Comey has been under pressure by congressional Republicans, to give out more information to the American people. What's going on? There's a lot of inconsistencies in, the FBI notes, and these notes are getting leaked every day, and every day it's a new story. And she's starting to look worse and worse. I mean, that whole fiasco where she didn't know what the letter C meant. I mean, come on. So I think Comey's trying to save face. There's been some murmurs within the FBI that a lot of investigators, a lot of lower tier agents were upset at the way Comey handled the investigation, and felt as though there was some weird connection with the DOJ, and so they. But as Harry said, I mean, they haven't released any information on what this new update is on the Weiner device. So we don't know. I mean, Hillary Clinton actually gave that press conference where she just recycled her talking points, said, "I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong." I don't know what's in the emails, but I'm sure it's not classified, which that makes zero sense whatsoever. And she actually called on the FBI to release whatever information they have. And as Harry said, I don't think they're going to do so before Election Day.
I think it was kind of fantastic watching the Twitter stream, and everybody's losing their minds on Friday over this information. And then Hillary's just continuing to do the typical and not unfounded attacks against Trump and you're sexist, you hate women, blah, blah, blah. But it just seems so incredibly out of touch that she's not, it didn't even seem like she was touching the issue. I mean, she doesn't even care. She just is continuing the same old line. So, Aaron, what effect has this FBI decision had on the polls?
Well, as I said
Hillary
earlier, it's basically caused the polls to tighten. I mean, like I was looking at, I'll just repeat what I said earlier. In Pennsylvania, they're virtually tied. A lot of these national polls now are starting to swing more in Trump's favor. Like in the LA Times USC polls, like it's no change. The ABC national poll and Investors Business Daily, it's like 1 point in favor of Trump. And you're seeing now these polls, they're becoming virtually tied. So I think also I agree with Josh that that Comey's definitely do this in part because he's under pressure from the FBI. A lot of agents have been disappointed with him, as they rightly should be. I think part of the problem is the fact that the Department of Justice has been basically obstructing the FBI this whole time. If you listen to Comey's July testimony closely, he kept saying that there were grave concerns in the Justice Department about prosecuting her under the statute. And so what typically happens in FBI investigations like this is that there's a lot of give and take between the FBI and the Department of Justice. They routinely converse on these things. And during this give and take, you learn from the Department of Justice like how high of a standard they're holding in terms of how they're going to what kind of case the FBI needs to bring to them in order for them to prosecute. So a new report came out this week that 97% of the Department of Justice employees are Hillary donors. So there's no way that they were going to ever prosecute her. And I think that even if like a bombshell has been discovered discovered from these new batch of emails on that Wiener laptop, but they probably won't either, you know. So basically what will happen is if Hillary wins, which she probably will, she'll basically be kind of a lame duck president in that regard. It may not matter if the Congress is lost to the Democrats, but this will basically be something that will be kind of hanging over her head throughout her presidency, should she win.
Yeah, that's kind of something I wanted to talk about, and I was actually going to save it for the end, but let's just talk about it now since you kind of brought that up. How is this going to, because I think we're all pretty much agreed, I'm not sure about Josh, but I think we're pretty much all agreed that Hillary probably is going to win.
Oh, 100%.
Despite this.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Mm-hmm. So how is this going to affect her incoming presidency? Why don't we give that to Josh?
Well, you know, 538 Nate Silver, he's been suggesting recently that, as Aaron said, the Republicans might lose the Senate, in which
and the House too. I should add, they might lose
and the House too, which is in peril as well, and that would be unprecedented because Trump is such a bad candidate. I mean, you heard Paul Ryan a few weeks ago who told down ballot candidates to do what they need to do because the situation is starting to get really dark. If that's the case, I don't think anything's going to happen to her. I think the press is going to forget about it. And, you know, the press has obviously been kind of, I'll be nice, shy about, about tackling this issue head on. You've had the Federalist and other, more conservative papers really digging deep, but Daily Wire as well. But you haven't really seen New York Times, MSNBC, the LA Times really look into the WikiLeaks dump, look into the emails, the FBI notes. I mean, they don't care because they see Trump as this existential threat, and I think that's going to carry over into the presidency. And without pressure from the Fourth Estate, without pressure from the press, we're not going to see any. We're not going to see Hillary Clinton held accountable at all. Mm-hmm. I don't think so.
Yeah. Harry, did you want to weigh in on that at all?
Sure. So one thing I just want to point out from the previous point with regards to Comey's sort of trying to saving himself by bringing this up again. I think that's partially true for sure, but also I think the timing of it all is a bit, I guess, questionable in the sense that I don't know what actually goes on at the FBI with the various levels and how how Loretta Lynch works in there, but the time in which this all came out, I think, was basically the best possible time for Donald Trump. Like if this had been brought back up like early September, or even kind of the beginning of October, it wouldn't have been nearly as helpful, I think, to Trump as exactly when it came out. So I think there's some reasons to suspect why it might also be a new discovery, just from that point. And then on the second point with regards to the Hillary presidency, yeah, I think so. Definitely, if the Republicans lose the Senate, because we have Donald Trump as the nominee, who's, as Aaron said, I guess hits himself with a frying pan. I think he was recently he was fighting with McMullen, the guy the independent candidate, right? The guy, he's like, Utah apparently is contested. Right?
Yeah.
Go figure. A Republican candidate might lose Utah.
And Texas.
And I think like
that's not a battleground state. That's unreal.
So if that actually happens, if the Republicans lose both houses of Congress, then the press will basically kind of I just saw this on Twitter. So this is a headline from I think one of the left-leaning sites. So someone just clipped a few headlines, and this is basically how they covered the James Comey thing. So from July, the headline read, FBI Director James Comey breaks federal prosecutor rules by smearing but not indicting Hillary Clinton over emails. Forward to last Friday, this is the same news outlet. This is the headline: how FBI Director James Comey ignored his boss and broke DOJ rules to announce Hillary Clinton email investigation. So I mean, that in a nutshell is how the media is going to go, if Hillary Clinton's president and the Republicans have no power in Congress.
Was that Media Matters, Harry?
I'm not sure.
That's what it sounds like, I think.
Neon Taster, I think, is the guy. If he's really funny.
He's hilarious,
But he tweeted this out. Yeah, so he just clipped a few headlines. Like another one that said, ethical questions surround FBI director's decision on email probe. Right, like somehow now the FBI director is the bad guy here. Like apparently he's the one under FBI investigation.
Yeah.
So so if I think that's really what it boils down to. Like I think Republicans have a lot of firepower if Hillary Clinton becomes president, but they won't be able to use it if they don't have any actual tools to use any of it with, right?
All right, so we're going to kind of move on to the whole reason why I wanted Josh to come on, because his expertise apparently is foreign policy and national security. And if you follow him on Twitter at Josh Yaz, you will be educated, because I need educating in this area. So this is one of the issues that is becoming increasingly crucial to this country, given that we've had more than several attacks on our own home soil. So Josh, since this is your area of expertise, why don't you tell our audience why exactly we should be concerned, especially going into the future with a new presidency, about the security of this country and about the turmoil going on in the Middle East and in Europe?
So we've essentially had 8 years of a lame duck president when it comes to foreign policy. There's a huge power vacuum in the Middle East as a result of Obama's not Bush doctrine, as I like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
He views the entire Middle East as a large Iraq, as this monolithic Iraq. And his entire foreign policy is refracted through this singular prism of, I'm not going to make the same mistake as Bush made, and Iraq was this huge disaster, which is, debatable. So I'm not going to project U.S. power anywhere, even if the Russians are running a scorched earth campaign. And that's sort of why we're seeing the Middle East essentially implode. You have an emboldened Russia coming in, projecting power in Syria. You have Iran, widening its sphere of influence, and this disastrous Iran deal isn't helping the situation at all. You actually, for the first time in decades, you have Russian troops on the ground in the Middle East, standing side by side by Syrian troops, massacring civilians. And all we get from the White House is a stern letter or we're shocked. Well, that's falling on deaf ears. And the next, whoever it is, it's likely going to be Hillary Clinton. By all metrics, Hillary is more hawkish than President Obama. So she's already assembled a team to revisit the Syria question.
Mhm.
She knows that Obama's Syria non-policy is a disaster. So I think that she's going to push back against the Russians a little bit, and provide some assurances to Sunni allies, Saudis, Qataris, who have felt marginalized and left out the past few years as Obama cozies up with the mullahs in Iran. So I think we're going to see a big change. Right now, a lot of policymakers from London to Jerusalem to even to Ankara and Turkey are playing it safe. They're not making any bold moves until we see who the next president is, because nobody takes Obama seriously anymore. He's not respected on the world stage at all. So that's where we're at right now, and it's a pretty sad state of affairs.
So I was going to have Amanda talk about this, but I'm going to give this to Aaron. Let's just imagine for this magical moment of unicorns and flowers that Trump somehow wins. What can we expect from a Trump presidency on foreign policy?
Well, every indication seems to be that he tends to fall into the Pat Buchanan kind of isolationist thing. So I don't really expect much to change under a Trump presidency foreign policy-wise. He would probably be a little more adept at identifying the problem in terms of at least it comes radical Islam. He's at least willing to identify the problem and might even bomb ISIS. But he's not going to do much more than that. I think because he's obviously he's a bromance with Putin right now. One of the things that I agree with a lot what Josh said. What's wrong with the globe right now in terms of foreign policy? I would just add that China also is a big concern, because right now they have essentially taken the East China Sea and the South China Sea, which are international waters, and saying that this is ours, and they're building fake islands there. And there are allies there, Taiwan, the Philippines, Japan, are begging us for the U.S. for some help. And the Obama administration is just kind of shrugging it off, giving them the cold shoulder. So, I don't think Trump would help with that either. I don't think Hillary will either. I think that she is slightly more hawkish than Obama. I don't think she'd be much better. I don't think. If you look at the WikiLeaks email, she gushed about Vladimir Putin in 2013. She said that once Bashar al-Assad's reformer, she was Obama's Secretary of State. So I'm not convinced that she would be a huge improvement, maybe marginally so, than Obama, but not a huge one. I think foreign policy, unfortunately, it's not going to get much better regardless of who is president. So it sucks. I wish that we had somebody who was a pretty hardcore hawk, but we don't have one. So such as say of 2016.
Yeah, pretty much the summary of 2016. Josh kind of already touched on this, what we can expect from a Hillary presidency on foreign policy. My concern is her willingness to put her own benefit ahead of even, people's lives when it comes to things like Benghazi. So I'm guessing, I guess my question is, can we expect more incidences like Benghazi from her? Or is that something that possibly she's learned, maybe that's not the best idea? I'm asking Josh for that one.
I don't think we'll see any Benghazi type, incidents. That was just an egregious error.
Mm-hmm.
And she, there's no doubt she dropped the ball there. I think she'd certainly be hawkish, as we've talked about. With regard to, securing classified information, national security, information pertaining to national security, I think that she's going to be, a bit loose with that. I don't think that she's going to take it seriously. It doesn't seem like she respects procedure. It doesn't look like she respects her staff. It doesn't look like she thinks that she's above the law. But I'd like to challenge Aaron a bit. I think that she is going to be, I wouldn't say significantly, but we're going to notice a discernible change. between the Obama administration foreign policy and the Hillary foreign policy. And here's one example. In Syria, this was a hugely contentious issue with the Obama administration. She's been firm about establishing a no-fly zone, and that's huge, and also safe zones. And what that means is she's willing to, and she's announced it publicly, to challenge Russia's monopoly over the air in Syria to advance U.S. interests. And I think she should be commended for that. I think that's a bold move. And with regard to China, so I 100% agree with Aaron. I don't think the Obama administration has been doing enough to push back against China's expansionist policies. I might be in the minority here, but I think that TPP, I don't know if we talked about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's a free trade agreement that we're trying to establish with Southeast Asian partners. I think that's necessary. I think that's going to be instrumental in pushing back China's influence, in making sure that trade routes are secure, and that's a major concern for countries like Vietnam, for Japan, that the Chinese Navy are blocking trade routes and and basically establishing naval dominance. And I think that we need some sort of economic and military agreement to make sure that we stand behind our Southeast Asian partners, which Obama said 8 years ago he was going to do under the guise of pivot to Asia. But what's happened in the Middle East has pulled him back, and he hasn't been able to escape the rabbit hole. He hasn't been able to pivot to Asia and make sure that our Southeast Asian partners feel safe.
So, Aaron, did you want to follow up with that? Because I do want to bring Harry into this.
I mean, a lot of what as a Clinton, Hillary does a lot of political posturing, so she might be sounding tough, but I'm not convinced she'll back it up and stuff with actual use of force or anything, because there's nothing in the record that indicates that. So, I mean, if she is president, she probably will. I would hope that there is significant change. I wouldn't be convinced until I see it, though. With regards to, I do agree, though, about being able to classify information. I think people don't realize that so much quid pro quo went on between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department that really influenced foreign policy. So, for instance, there was this deal that was approved of Uranium One, which is, as name implies, it's a uranium enrichment company that was owned by a Clinton Foundation donor. And the State Department approved the deal that basically allowed that company to be bought by essentially the Russian government, and giving Russia like at least 20% of our uranium enrichment, if some estimates as high as like 50%. There's also this thing called Skolkovo, which if people don't realize what that is, that's basically Russia's Silicon Valley. Basically, it's like an innovation center. Hillary pushed for U.S. tech companies to invest in Skolkovo, and in return, Skolkovo had Russians tied to them donating to the Clinton Foundation. And so the problem with that is the fact that Skolkovo was basically an arm of the Russian government to try and get access to our classified information, which, given how insecure her email server is, it's, they probably did. So, given the fact that she really doesn't have respect for the rule of law, I would assume that kind of quid pro quo would kind of continue under Hillary presidency, and would put, her position up for sale, just as she did as Secretary of State.
Harry, how do the Canadians handle the issue of foreign policy? Do they just kind of follow suit with the United States, or what? I mean, is the entire North American continent just going to completely bow down to Hillary Clinton, basically?
Bow down to Her Majesty.
So, I mean, it definitely varies on the specific issues of foreign policy. I would say with the previously Josh brought up the TPP, and so our previous Prime Minister Stephen Harper, he was a strong supporter of TPP because it liberalizes trade for Canada. It opens us up to more trade. It's effectively, I think, one of the largest trade deals in the world.
Yeah.
And so as far as, I mean, there's definitely a lot of misinformation about TPP, I think, regarding what it is. But I mean, from the the research I've done, I think it's at least good for Canada. Absolutely. And I guess I was happy to see that our current Prime Minister, who I'm not, I guess, the biggest cheerleader for, but Justin Trudeau, to my understanding, he is also in favor of TPP. And one thing that I guess kind of does drive me insane about Hillary Clinton is she used to be in favor of free trade and trade liberalization. And then I guess during the primaries, she shied away from it because she had to, I guess, appeal to her kind of far left base.
Mm-hmm.
She's out of the primaries. I guess she's trying to appeal to some of the populist kind of Donald Trump movement, I guess, in a sense. But I hope that if she does become president, that she doesn't become, like a Bernie Sanders trade protectionist. Other foreign policy issues, Canada had a much bigger role on the world stage, I would say, about a year ago under Stephen Harper, whereas with Justin Trudeau, we basically pulled away from the kind of coalition against the Islamic State. I think we have some troops in Syria as far as we're training some people. We also have the kind of most incoherent part about our foreign policy is we actually have planes that are there to refuel other planes, but we don't actually have planes that just drop bombs like on ISIS military bases. So so on that end, there's no kind of positive thing I could say about Justin Trudeau. One thing I wanted to ask
What
Josh,
a surprise!
one was so Josh previously brought up the point where Hillary Clinton was firm on establishing safe zones and no-fly zones in Syria, which I thought was a good idea. I thought that given if America projects power, I think that would kind of avert the Russians from sort of moving forward in that region. But kind of at the same time, there's a lot of people, I guess, on the far left, like these Jill Stein people and even some Donald Trump supporters who basically claim that if Hillary Clinton becomes president and goes forward with a kind of more firm foreign policy in Syria with establishing these no-fly zones, this somehow means nuclear war with Russia. And I just wanted to see if Josh wanted to comment on that and explain why that's probably absurd that Russia would ever want to go to nuclear war with the United States.
It is absurd. And, during the Cold War, we had this concept of mad, mutually assured destruction where, both sides would fight proxy wars, United States and the Soviet Union, because they knew that a direct confrontation would be disastrous for both sides. After the Berlin Wall fell, Russia fell on hard times, and America's firepower kept growing exponentially. Today, our military is 40 times more powerful than Russia's military, and Vladimir Putin is not a dumb man. He's a smart man, and he knows that. So, if we make a threat against a country, if we promise something, then we have to follow through with it. And if the Russians know that, basic game theory says they'll back down. I don't think, especially in Syria, because it's not their own backyard, they will not risk mass casualties. They will not risk, the U.S. Air Force taking out Russian fighter pilots to continue backing this maniacal dictator, Bashar al-Assad, that's probably going to be ousted from power in the next few years. I know it looks pretty bad now, but, Putin thrives on weakness. When in 2013, Obama established the infamous red line. He said, if Bashar al-Assad uses chemical weapons, the U.S. is going to respond with force. Fast forward, Assad uses chemical weapons. Obama does nothing. That effectively gave, the Kremlin, Moscow, the green light to continue their excursion, their colonial excursion. A few months later, they established, an intimate military relationship with Syria. They put troops on the ground. They started bombing targets with cluster munitions, with things that are considered illegal in wartime under international law, all because they knew that Obama didn't have the gall to respond. And they're testing the waters now, and they've been doing so. And they won't stop until somebody gets in their way and issues a legitimate threat and follows through with it. And so this notion that, Russia will get into a nuclear confrontation, well, Russia's going to keep escalating the situation regardless. So, until we stand in front of them, they're not going to stop. And I don't think that at this stage that Russia is going to risk all-out direct confrontation, nuclear war with a much more superior military. And I agree with Harry. It's absurd that Jill Stein supporters and Donald Trump supporters are making this argument. I think that the far left has always been sympathetic to Russian interests, and it's really disturbing to see folks on the Trumpian rights flirt with this idea that this Russian strongman is good for, is good for global stability. And, one more thing, there's one thing that Trump said during the debate that really bothered me. And I think this is why he's most dangerous. It's not, the offensive rhetoric. It's the fact that he's saying that Russia is effectively taking out ISIS targets. That is not true. All our intelligence information, all our satellite photos shows that Russia is attacking, Islamist militants that are not affiliated with ISIS, but that are opposed to Assad, and this is most important, U.S. allies that we're funding, that we're training, including the Free Syrian Army, the FSA, which I think that we should be backing much more. And they are bombing U.S. allies, and we're not doing a thing to stop them. So this myth that Trump is perpetuating, that that Russia is a partner to fight ISIS, that's not true. You could look at their bombing patterns. They have barely touched ISIS. They don't care about ISIS. They care about keeping Bashar al-Assad in power, and that includes attacking U.S. allies if necessary.
So just to kind of bring this discussion back to where we started with Hillary, does this FBI investigation end up going away in the long run? I think I want to start with Aaron on this one. So yeah, is this just going to go away? Is it going to escalate, within the next week before the election?
It's hard to say because there's so much we don't know about it yet. And again, this is probably something that will take months. So maybe we'll escalate. I don't know. Unfortunately, Clinton seems to always get away with everything. So I tend to be pessimistic about the chances of her actually facing justice. And yeah, I would say the odds are likely that we probably at least lose the Senate because I think there are just too many close races involving incumbent Republicans right now. My guess will probably be 50-50, and then the Vice President Tim Kaine breaks the tie. And so if the Senate's gone, then there's for sure not going to be any chance that anything bad can happen to her. She might be impeached, the Senate won't remove her, obviously. Mm-hmm. And if the Republicans keep Congress, I'm not convinced they'll do anything. They haven't done anything to stand up to Obama, really. So I don't see why with Hillary it'd be any different. So I'm inclined to think that most likely, some stuff will come out, and people will call on her to resign and so forth. Actually, interestingly, I just remembered this. The Chicago Tribune today actually had an editorial saying that Hillary should drop out, and they're a pretty left-wing newspaper, which is kind of interesting. But, there might be some calls of sort of saying her to resign, or, just saying that what she's doing is criminal and she'll just spend it away. The media will cover for her. Congress does nothing. Everyone moves on. That's probably what's going to happen. I really hope it's not the case. I really would like to see her face justice, but just given how the Clintons have been treated their whole political lives, it's most likely scenario.
Harry, what do you think is going to be the fallout of this FBI investigation? Not necessarily regarding the election, but is this going to damage Hillary enough that it's going to make it maybe more difficult for her to actually be president and be seen as an actual leader?
I think it will definitely shake confidence in her. I think there's even people in her own party who, I just find it hard to grasp the idea that they can tell with certainty that she's not corrupt in any way. I'm sure that, with now being the second time she's being criminally investigated by the FBI, there has to be some kind of some concerns within her own party. But it's kind of hard to say until we actually know what's going on. Like as I said earlier, the FBI doesn't even have a warrant yet to go through Huma's emails, right? So it's, at this point, it's a little early to speculate, though I do think that one way or another, the Republicans are going to have to hold on to basically everything that we've discovered through WikiLeaks, through the FBI, as firepower, for the next, I guess, at least the first term of her presidency. And then, as Aaron mentioned, they'll basically be trying to do everything they can to sort of resurface a lot of the stuff, while the media will do their best just to cover up for it. Just like when when Obama was president, the 2012 election, it's just basically what happened. The media wasn't really covering Benghazi at all. So we're going to see more or less the same thing. And I think it might have been Andrew Plavin who brought up the point where it's maybe speculative that Republicans might be stronger in standing up to her if they do have the House, because there is no that whole first black president kind of issue isn't there. So
Right.
Maybe that'll be.
But there's the first woman president.
Right, the first one. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think that's the point. I think if I guess is Paul Ryan going to be more powerful than John Boehner as far as it goes? I don't necessarily know. So far, he hasn't really stood up to any of the budgets that Obama's wanted to pass. So I don't see any kind of big indicators as to why Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan are going to really stand up to her. But I do think that they're not just going to let it go. I do think they're going to try to definitely push back. And if the FBI does reveal something really damning, then I think they will go forward with some kind of impeachment process.
And if I may add, I think what's so unsettling about this election is that it's really put our constitutional republic to the test. I mean, on one hand, you have Trump, who's posturing like a demagogue, and there's fears of tyranny of the majority, and expanding executive branch, and as Obama has done the past 8 years, and and what happens when these safeguards that are supposed to guard us against demagogues, against criminals, are put to the test. And quite frankly, this Hillary Clinton scenario is uncharted territory. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what happens if she's elected and the FBI comes out with something damning. Who knows? I mean, you had Nixon, you had Warren G. Harding, but this is really unprecedented. And we've never dealt with this as a country on both sides of the spectrum. And we're going to see how our democracy works. And I think it's going to be an interesting lesson in civics the next few weeks.
I would just like to add real quick that I think already so much of our constitutional republic has been damaged a lot by the Obama presidency, because so much of what he has done is basically, flipped Congress the bird, basically, and just ruling with his mighty pen and his phone, with those executive orders and so forth. But even so, if you think about it, if you think about what the most powerful branch of government is right now, it's the executive.
Yeah.
Not just because of Obama's executive orders, but because we have all these federal agencies and departments that burp out all these regulations, 80,000-page regulations a year that we have no say on and have the force of law. And so you could theoretically be doing something that is illegal and you don't know it, because these other regulations are out there. So in some sense, election doesn't really even matter in that regard, because that's going to go on regardless whether it's a Republican or Democrat in the White House. And then think about the next after the executive branch comes the courts, which was the Supreme Court's been out of control recently with basically nationalized different issues. Federal courts have been doing this a lot too, for that matter. And then really Congress is just kind of there, it's almost it's not completely irrelevant, but it's becoming more and more irrelevant, which is disturbing, because Congress is supposed to be reflective of the people, And so if they're the most powerful branch of they're the least powerful branch of Congress right now, which they are, that's troubling. And yeah, I mean, I think that with either Hillary or Trump, those concerns are gonna continue regardless. So these are definitely dark times. I don't know how it all plays out. I don't know if we survive the next 4 years as a republic. And by that I mean America will still exist, but it'll be a very different one. We won't be like the exceptional America that was founded. As founded, it'll just be just another country. We'll be a regional power rather than a superpower, regardless of who wins. I mean, there's really no good outcome out of this.
To piggyback off that, on the cultural side of this, and Harry has written a few good pieces about this. You have this insurgency of these social justice warriors, the left trying to suppress free speech. And I think this goes hand in hand with the expansion of the executive branch, with this populist movement. And it's really, challenging the fabric of our democracy. When Trump held a political rally, and God knows how much I hate Trump, but he held one in San Jose a few months ago. And you had these Bernie fanatics come out and inflict violence on Trump supporters, because they disagreed with them. And what I'm seeing a lot of this populist far-right European populism is trickling over to the United States. And what you're seeing is both the far right and the far left kind of coming together in the form of Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, who are populist figures. And they're really challenging, the way America's functioned all these years. Free speech, these sorts of issues are supposed to be decided with the courts. And as Aaron said, the courts are starting to be problematic. But so we have the culture side that's challenging our constitutional republic, and the political side,
right,
the Hillary Clinton executive branch. So it's scary.
It is. It goes hand in hand. I mean, perfect example was CSULA. Josh, you and I were both there. When Ben Shapiro spoke, and it was horrifying, wasn't it? I mean, they were basically assaulting people behind the doors and everything. It was man, that was horrifying to watch. But I think, the violence is also becoming a problem, and we see now with this Project Veritas videos, the Democrats actually had caused those violence. The violence that happened, which is very disturbing. That we're having a major political party actually doing that sort of type of thing. And I think Trump is definitely of the European right mindset, and that is disturbing that he is that kind of European right movement is starting to foment here in America. I think one of the biggest reasons for this is the fact that I think Trump is in many ways a counter-reaction to Obama, to the dining politics of the left. So Obama has been, and Hillary too for that matter, are both massive race baiters, and so Trump is kind of like the counter-reaction to that. So now it's like Trump, it's like the race baiters in response to Obama, Hillary, and the left identity politics. So what we're seeing is this increase of tribalism that's and I think when you see tribalism increase, you're going to see more authoritarian government. That's just how history has always been. So these are very dark times. I don't know if there's an easy answer out of it.
I mean, 100% agreed with Aaron. And, one perfect example is, on one hand, you have President Obama, who won't even utter the words radical Islam. I mean, how absurd is that? And then on the other hand, you have the ridiculous Trump reaction. He just goes straight for, let's ban all Muslims. And I think anybody of sound mind can agree that's just xenophobic nonsense. So you don't have a nuanced view of these issues. You don't have somebody coming and saying, okay, let's separate the people and ideology. Let's get to the core of where these racial tensions are happening, instead of dividing the world into black and white. And
with Trump, it seems like it's a case of somebody who doesn't have any kind of inkling of how things work at all, and doesn't really care either. He comes to these debates as if he hasn't even been prepped. He has no real understanding of any of the issues that he's coming. Look at the abortion issue, just for example. He comes up there and he attempts to describe a partial birth abortion procedure, and he doesn't even know what he's saying, nor does he really care.
Right. It's like Jeremy Boring said, it's like Trump talks in headlines, so he kind of touches on the issue, but then he just kind of starts railing about something else.
Yeah. So I need to kind of bring this to a close. I'm sorry. I know we could go on all day, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to 3 of my favorite Twitter sites, at Ben Shapiro, at Andrew Clavin, and my #1 favorite Twitter site besides my own, at Real Daily Wire. So go and give all 3 of those a follow, if you don't mind. And anybody else who has a shout out to give, please speak now.
Sure. So I would like to give a shout out to the new Nixon Library that opened earlier this month. I got to cover it for Daily Wire. It was really cool. I was very impressed with it. It's very well done. I learned a lot about Nixon that I didn't really know before, because a lot of people unfairly, I think, associate Nixon with Watergate. And I think there's a lot more to his presidency than that. Regardless of your political perspective, you should check it out because it's very interesting. It's near Belinda, so definitely check it out if you can. let's see, shout outs to Stocks at BMAC507 and at Anna Eleanor, Anna White. Also to give a shout out to Cassie Dillon. She's doing a lot of great work with her new website, Low Conservative. She's also doing a lot of campus activism to fight the good fight. So shout out to her as well. Also shout out to a friends of mine, at Mark Moiser, a friend of mine who ran for the state senate twice in my hometown district in the Bay, and know him really well. He's a good guy. And to my friend at Drew DC, Andrew Phillips, another good friend of mine who's in DC, as the Twitter handle suggests. So yeah.
Harry, do you have any shout outs to give for this live stream?
Sure. You can follow this guy. Recently met on Twitter. His name is at _thinker. Political thoughts.
Oh, PolitiThinker.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he has some good stuff.
He does.
I don't know who I think he's some anonymous guy, but he's pretty good. He has some good stuff.
Yeah. Josh, do you have anybody you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of misinformation about Zika, malaria, and a lot of these diseases. My brother at Jonathan Yasmeh, he's very well read on public policy and medicine. So, feel free to follow him. Also, Majid Nawaz and Ayan Hirsi Ali, who this week they were listed by the SPLC, which is supposed to be a civil rights organization, as anti-Muslim extremists when they're actually on the front lines, coordinating with Islamic communities and fighting terrorism. And I think that's a grave injustice. Feel free to sign a change.org petition for them. Majid Nawaz and Ayan Hirsi Ali.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you all coming. My mind has been blown.
Just one more shout out.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so there's this guy on Twitter, and if you ever wanted to parody a fanatical Trump supporter, you should just follow Bill Mitchell. @BillVII. Very funny account. It's even verified, so
Oh my God.
verified, hilarious.
I didn't realize he was verified. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
That's fantastic.
Anybody can verify. He's verified.
That's true.
Bill Mitchell.
It is very true. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate my mind has been blown by all the information that I didn't know. And I hope to have you guys on again sometime.
Thanks for having us.
All right. We are going to go off the air.